And pain. Welcome, everybody. She's cute. She puts it at my feet. Ow, don't bite my foot. It's my toy. Mine, Mom. Mine. Mm-mm. I'm going to turn down my TV because I could hear it all the way in here. Oops. Get your baby one again. Oh. Hi, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good. I'm always just waiting. I'm all waiting patiently. Well, I got on a few minutes early because I like to be on here early so that if anybody has trouble or whatever.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any trouble.
Oh, good. Well, because with the link, right? It just this thing's gonna give me problems. No, that's what this thing does to me. No. Okay, I think it's fine right there. I think it's fine there. Okay, there. Okay. So first, I would like to tell anybody watching that you can, if you have any questions, if you're streaming, you can pop in questions right here in the comments, and I'll highlight them, and I'll like address any questions that are asked. Also, you can stream us if you missed. You can stream us via YouTube or Facebook because I'll post the video once we're done. Um, and then I would like you to introduce yourself, where you did your time, and how much time you did.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Justin Allen. I spent most of my time in Hobbs, but I've been in all of the New Mexico correction facilities except Clayton. I spent 17 years incarcerated from 96 to 2015. I got out one time. Yeah, and I've um, throughout my incarceration, I just tried to program and keep myself busy, education, college, and every program I could get involved in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you, before your charges began, what was your lifestyle like?
Before I got my charges, well, um, I got in I got into substance use really young. Um, Being queer wasn't something that was really accepted in my household. Um, I left home really young. By the time I was uh, 15 years old, I was already found myself in juvenile detention uh, behind substances, and it kind of everything kind of went downhill from there. Um, I got involved in. I smoked crack cocaine when I was about 13 years old. By the time I was a teenager, I had already tried methamphetamine. And I always thought that that would be a part of my lifestyle because the drugs did two things for me. It allowed me to fit in with people that accepted me for who I am unconditionally, and also numb the negative feelings I had about myself. So I thought I'd never get away from that lifestyle or incarceration.
Wow. Well, that's very powerful. um, how did you feel the first time the judge ever sentenced you to do prison time?
The first time when I got sentenced, I couldn't believe that I got 10 years. I couldn't, I didn't have any victims in my charges. All of it was like possession and trafficking charges. I didn't really consider myself a drug trafficker. I was really just supporting my habit, and that was the way I survived um, on the streets too. Um, but I thought it was unfair because I thought I would see like really. Uh, it seemed like I got more time than a lot of violent or predatory offenses, and so it really made me think about or started uh, questioning the system and these laws, and um, I started learning about the war on drugs and how it's accelerated mass incarceration in the United States.
Wow, you really, I feel like you turned this whole experience into like a learning experience. And that's, we'll talk a little bit about that later, but I feel like that's propelled a lot of your activism now. Yes?
Yes, yeah. I don't think I would be doing the work that I'm doing today had I not had that experience. I feel like a lot of people are apathetic to people's situations who end up incarcerated. You know, our society has this punishment mentality that doesn't really consider systems in place or circumstances that lead up to our arrests and incarceration.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Um, how did you mentally prepare yourself to go to prison? Well, I don't know. What was your situation? Did you sit in county time, or did you like? Well, did you know you knew you got sentenced, but it was probably like a process, right?
Well, I spent almost a year in the county jail.
Okay.
And I think that's how they get a lot of people to take plea bargains, keep them in the county jail where it's really hard and miserable so that people are actually anxious to go to prison. I couldn't understand why everybody was so excited to go to the joint until I got there and I was like, oh, this isn't as bad as it was over there. And so I started seeing like how people get anxious to go to prison when they sit in the jail for so long.
You know what? I never even thought about that, but I always 90% of the cases I seen in incarceration were plea bargains, and I'm like, why didn't you guys take it to trial? Or like, a lot of people don't know about the justice system, and they don't have the, how do I want to say, maybe like sometimes if you take it to the box, like you have a better chance. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are afraid of that whole box thing, the trial, and then they offer you like those 3 pleas, and one of them looks really good, right? And instead of the prison sentence, hanging. So I would see how people take pleas, but I think that it's really scary too with that.
Yeah, well, a lot of the time, like they coerce us into taking plea bargains I mean, for me personally, they told me that I was facing 54 years if I didn't take a 10-year plea, like things like that. And they scare you by telling you that if you lose in trial, you're going to get the maximum amount of time. And so a lot of us in our ignorance, we just sign these plea bargains, not knowing that it's a setup for the habitual offender that gives us actually more time in prison. And so they can stack like 3 convictions on you, call you a habitual offender, and then give you an 8-year criminal enhancement. And so, what I would say about those criminal enhancements and mandatory minimums, it's not about deterring crime or rehabilitation or anything like that. Mandatory minimums and criminal enhancements, sole purpose is to expand the prison industrial complex by keeping us incarcerated for longer periods. Um, I hear a lot of people say the system is broken. It is not broken. It is by design. These policies in place are designed to keep us down and keep us oppressed.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. How did you mentally prepare yourself when you arrived at RDC?
I didn't know what to expect in RDC. I heard things like you're going to have to click up and all this, and I really just stuck to myself and started reading a lot. And how I prepared myself, I started working out a lot, putting some weight on my body, and I think what happens to a lot of us is assimilation to prison culture. We adapt to the environment to survive, and some of the defense mechanisms that we develop as a survival mechanism doesn't work out here in society. And so I think that has to do with people returning back to prison or recidivism rates, because we hold on to those defense mechanisms when we get out, and it doesn't work. Like the human silencing that happens, not being able to advocate for ourselves, conditioning us to believe that our voice and our ideas don't matter, is all part of systemic oppression. But preparing myself, I just took advantage of every class, every program, and tried to learn as much as I could. And just really thinking about, I didn't want to think of myself as remaining in there for forever. So I would always think about the future, my life after incarceration. Because it gets pretty hopeless in there. I mean, discouraging and hopeless when you get good time taken away, or you get in trouble for things that are just ridiculous. I mean, yeah, it discourages folks. And yeah, I don't know how I prepared myself. I would just say that I met people that show supported me and like taught me the ropes, I guess. But for the most part, I stayed out of the mix. Like I didn't like to get involved with groups of people or a lot of um, yeah, a lot of the stuff that goes on in there, prison politics.
Yeah, right. So when you got into population, what type of programming were you involved in? Well, because I know the programming for the men is so different, so I'm real interested to hear about your programming.
So programming, I mean, I think a lot of it is performative. I mean, like I got in the therapeutic community. It's now called RDAP, or Residential Alcohol Drug and Alcohol Program. Well, back then it was called therapeutic community, and we would like program all day. Eventually, I became a mentor for that program. I took college courses until I got my associate's degree. Um, but after you get your associate's degree, they require you to pay for any classes to continue your education. Um, I got involved in Project Echo, the harm reduction project, and started, uh, you know, doing peer education around harm reduction within the facilities. And um, a lot of these things, I learned a lot, but it also kept me busy and out of the mix. And sweat lodges. I went to a lot of sweat lodges to, ground myself and pray and uh, um, reconnect with the earth. And I think that's what deterred me away from so much substance use in there, because at the time there was a lot of heroin and uh, I see a lot of people go in and come out with that habit. And so um, I think that the spiritual aspect uh, of the sweat lodge kind of deterred me from that. I also started teaching yoga in the prisons, just doing yoga by myself. Everybody's like, "That's gay, that's gay," and then pretty soon the whole pod was doing it.
That's cool. Because yoga is a really good workout. I know we were talking about it, and yoga is like it. Yoga works every muscle that you have in your whole body, even in your face, everywhere.
Yeah.
Yoga is amazing. I love yoga. I'm very excited to start your new class when you're going to start.
Yeah. So I'll be starting today. After this podcast, I'll be going over there to East Central Ministries to start my first class. So that's
Yay.
cool.
That's great. That's great. Did you develop any mental health issues while being incarcerated? Well, because I know that a big crowds for me, or like when I walk into a room, I see myself like backing to a wall, or like not wanting to be where there's like a lot of people around me, or just like certain things that I notice for myself.
I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I was on medications almost the whole time I was in there. It's funny because it seems like they put the whole prison on the same kind of medications. I mean, so I don't know what their diagnosis. I don't know how they get their diagnoses, but I think that anybody that spends more than a few years incarcerated, you develop some sort of mental issues, whether it be isolating yourself, depression, or anxiety. Um, uh, Today, it still affects me. I mean, I don't. I used to be pretty outgoing, and I used to dance. I used to be like really an extrovert, and I think after my incarceration, I'm don't like being like in. Yeah, it's hard for me now. I've had to work on it, but it affects us, especially like segregation or solitary confinement. That takes a toll on a person's mind.
Will you talk a little bit? Well, because I know that like the women, we don't face a lot of mass solitary confinement in the men's prison. That's like, I feel like that's mandatory because sometimes the men don't know how to behave. There's a lot of politics, which is a lot of gangs in there. There's a lot of like, there's different things that the women prisons do not have. You know what I mean? The women prisons don't have like any politics. There's no, like there's really just counties what run together, and it's not like the men, you know what I mean? But we know that when you guys get locked down, we get locked down as well, but it's not for like 9 months like that. I know we were talking, and will you talk a little bit about your solitary confinement time, please?
So I think it was around 1998 or 1999. A couple prisoners were murdered in southern New Mexico Correctional Facility, and because of the investigation that was going on, they locked down the whole facility for a year. I was locked down for 9 months until I got shipped to Hobbs. But during that time, I saw a lot of guys like literally lose it. I mean, I would see dudes standing in their doorway with tears coming down their face. What happens when you're in solitary confinement for long periods of time? You disassociate to uh, cope with the isolation, and so that has proven to cause brain damage, like for people. I think the only thing that helped me was doing yoga in my cell and kind of grounding myself and letting go of like mind over matter, trying to you know let go of the feelings and of being trapped or isolated, and just really focusing on the moment. Um, I think without reading and yoga, I would have probably lost a part of myself also.
That's amazing that you were able to tap into the, well, because yoga is a great source of meditation. It's a great, it's just like, it's good for your whole entire like mental well-being, you know, physically and your mind, because you're able to connect so deeply, you know. And I really love yoga. It's an amazing thing. But it's just really amazing to hear how you were able to cope with your, you know, the adversity that you faced, because I'm sure that you've seen a lot of people even like suicide, you know what I mean, because they couldn't cope with those types of things. And you got to thank yourself that you were very strong, because you made it out. You know, a lot of people didn't even make it out, and you got to give yourself credit for that. Well, because I feel like you're very you're a little bit hard on yourself too, you know. And I think we all are, you know, but you give yourself a lot of credit because you made it out.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. How did your addiction habits affect you while you were incarcerated? I probably think it didn't you, once you got there, you probably didn't think about that much, right?
Actually, no, it wasn't that I didn't think about it. It was just that I started getting involved in, heroin was never my drug of choice. I had never tried heroin until I went to the county jail. And then in prison, there was a lot of it. I was at that time, the syndicate was running the prison, and there was a lot of drugs. And in some places, you couldn't even stay in the pod unless you were getting high with them, because they would think you were a snitch. So I remember the first time I went into, when I first rolled up to Southern, they put me in a pod, and I got called down to the room, and they were like, "Esse, do you get high?" I said, they asked me where I was from, if I got high. I told them, and then I said, yeah. So they handed me a syringe, and it was like peer pressure, like kind of like, you either ride with us or collide with us. If you're not doing it, you don't belong here. And so that's kind of the culture in there. Like it's an escape. It's part of the experience. And um, Yeah, I did get involved in that for a while, but like I said, the sweat lodges and the programming helped pull me away from that mix.
The
I had
sweat
an excuse. I then had an excuse to get myself away from there.
That's the sweat lodge is really it's not surprising to me, but it's really because I love the natives too. I have native blood in me, and I'm very connected with my native people. I love me some natives, you know. But I'm like, why didn't I never ask to go to sweat lodge? You know what I mean? Because I think that would have been a really neat experience. When you told me about your experience, I was like, geez, I feel like I got left out. No, well, because that's probably the only time I would have ever experienced sweat lodge like that. You know what I mean? Because out here you got to be, I probably like full-blooded native to go, or I don't know, well, because they practice sweat out here, you know. And that's something that we're not accustomed to, and I think it's so sacred, you know. Those our ancestors practice stuff like that, you know. And I think that's really cool that you were able to participate in that.
Yeah, when I first went in, the way it worked is like as long as you were invited by one of the members, you were okay to go, and as long as the group welcomes you, you're allowed in. But the system has changed since then, and now they require like people to prove their connection to that practice, and it's I don't know. I haven't been there in a while, but I heard that they during COVID they shut down all that stuff like sweat lodges and chapel services, and still haven't really brought all of it back the way it should be.
I had heard a lot of stuff during COVID too. A lot of people died at Western. Like people were killing themselves because they had them slammed down because of the COVID protocol. And I'm like, wow, like it's just like the things that that's why I feel such a great calling to do this podcast. Like I didn't really think that I'd be continuing to do it right now. When I first started the first podcast, you know, like we didn't really know what we were doing. And then we kind of organized, got all our questions going. And then I've met so many people that have literally touched and impacted my life. Like, cause I literally learn something every time. Like I'm like, I think about something in a different way and it impacts me, right? Because I'm feeling the same feelings you have. And then like I that's why I keep continuing to do it and keep continuing because I know that our stories and our testimonies are important. They're all valid and the things that we went through. I would like to ask you another question if you would like to talk about it about the doctor that was at one of the facilities.
Oh, okay. So when I was in Santa Rosa, I had trouble issues urinating, so I went to medical, and uh, the doctor told me that I had to keep coming back for these tests. Pretty much led me to believe that I had a cancer or some prostate issues or something like that, and was subjecting me to these really invasive exams. And I didn't know, I had never had one of these exams before, so I just thought what he was doing was part of it. It was very uncomfortable, very even like yeah, it was very intrusive. And after like the third time that I was called there, I had a conversation with my cellie about this procedure. When I explained to him what this doctor was doing to me, he was like, "Oh no, that's not how the procedure goes. That's completely like he's fucking with you." Like just straight up told me you need to report this. And when he told me that, I instantly felt like some kind of way, like shame, disgust, and then fear. Like I didn't want nobody to know that that was happening, and uh, so I didn't know how to deal with that. Like I didn't know how to talk about it or whatever, and I started refusing to go to the uh, appointments after. Well, other things he was doing, like giving me mass doses of antibiotics that was making me really sick. Um, I was put on a like a regimen of antibiotics that was making me like just turn yellow and have diarrhea constantly, and then giving me Prilosec to alleviate the acid reflux. And I think that all that stuff affected my kidneys. Um, but when I first tried to report it, they basically laughed at me and shipped me out of the facility. And then come to find out, years later, this guy has had a reputation for doing this stuff. He first started abusing inmates. His name was Dr. Mark Walden. He first started abusing inmates when he was in Clayton, but rather than investigating him or firing him, they just shipped him to Santa Rosa. So um, now I mean, you can read about him in the news. In the news today, there's been 77 reported cases. He's in federal prison now, but that's only the reported cases. I know that a lot of men are reluctant to report that because of the stigma and shame. People are reluctant to report that because they don't want to become a target or victim in there, re-victimized. And so a lot of people just keep that quiet and don't talk about it. And when they don't face that stuff and deal with it, it manifests in other ways like substance abuse, violence. I mean, when we don't deal with our traumas and stuff like that, it has a negative impact on our well-being and mental health.
Wow. I feel like the prisons are breeding grounds for like the bottom of the barrel, like because there was a dentist who worked at Springer, and I'm not kidding you. I think it was a female. She literally sewed someone's tongue to their cheek. How do you do that? Like, how do you sew? Like, what? So they came back to the unit like that, and they couldn't move their tongue. Their tongue was sewed to their cheek. They had been a dentist that was malpractice.
Yeah, and see,
Like,
that's the thing with
how do they
Horizon.
not regulate that stuff? That's just really, I don't know. Like it really, I don't know. It really touches me in my heart. I really feel for you. I'm sorry that happened to you, and that they, like, at that time, imagine if somebody would have listened to you. Like, you could have saved a lot of people if they would have listened, but because instead of dealing with the paperwork and the outcome of whatever, because they knew
Well,
they knew.
people are afraid to file grievances because of the retaliation. Whenever you file a grievance, it's likely that you'll get segregated or punished or privileges taken away, and so a lot of people just are afraid to file grievances. And the thing about that is, because of the Prison Litigation Act that Clinton enacted, a person cannot file a lawsuit unless they've exhausted their grievance process, and a lot of times that never happens out of fear of retaliation. And so that Prison Litigation Act or Prison Reform Litigation Act needs to be rescinded or repealed.
Is that the PREA?
No,
Oh, it's another one.
no, PRLA, Prison Reform
Okay.
Litigation Act. And what it did was it took the power away from prisoners to file lawsuits. Now they have to exhaust the grievance process before a lawyer can even touch their case.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I only know about that because I had an issue myself, and I didn't come forward at first, but I did when I did, because I seen other girls being hurt, and they actually came to me and they're like, we're scared when you leave Rhiannon that nothing's gonna happen. And so I came forward to the warden. She moved me out of level 1 housing. I was like, what? I lost my job. I was on the rate crew for like 90 days, and I couldn't even get a job. Like, and I keep telling them, this is such great retaliation for my lawsuit. And they're all looking at me like, you're crazy, because they didn't believe that I was going to win, and I settled out of court for a minimal amount because I first of all didn't want to be slandered in the courts. Like, do you know what I mean? Because they make you look like you're this horrible person. Like, well, you're this prisoner, you're whatever, you're so and so, you're this and that. Well, what about you? Like, you have a badge to uphold your job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they take an oath when they take those positions. That doctor took a Hippocratic oath when he took that position not to abuse his authority or whatever. And like, it's just really sad that a lot of that stuff falls through the cracks, you know what I mean? And I feel like this is why this podcast is really important, to raise the issues that are there, that are still there. These issues are still there, that are still broken, that are worth discussing right now, you know?
Yeah, and so a lot of those medical staff, they're contracted through Corizon, and the way that the facilities get their medical services is low. They take the lowest bidder. So Corizon was the lowest bidder, so they accepted that as their healthcare. And a lot of these people that are working under Corizon have shady pasts, like accusations and all these things in their past, to where they're not allowed to work in the community, but they let them work with us. And it's, yeah, these people should be fired. They shouldn't even be practicing within facilities or and in community ever. I think that this particular individual was preying off people's confidence. Him being a doctor, they put their trust in him, and we're really open about their lifestyle and some of the things, their personal stuff. I opened up to him about a lot of, you know, you know, I I wasn't really out in I wasn't out in prison. I didn't let anybody know that I was gay, but I thought I could tell the doctor that in confidence, out of fear of, maybe it's related to STD or something like that. I think that, yeah, that these individuals preyed on a lot of people's trust in them. Um, yeah, it's sad, it's sickening, and then the fact that they're not held accountable, or investigated when they're first reported is, you know, something that's still. I mean, I guess it conditions people just to stay silent and allow those things to happen.
It does. It really does, because there was a CO, and I honestly believe that, I don't know, I wish that I could find some people, men who did time in Springer. I'm actually going to put it out there on my page. I'm looking for men who did time in Springer when there was a correctional officer named Gonzalez. His name was, I can't remember his first name right now. Oh my gosh, it'll come to me. But when we got to the facility, because it was a boys' facility, remember?
Uh-huh.
When we got there, there was a set of Encyclopedia Britannicas, okay? And in these Britannicas, there was two of them with the self-portrait, ladies, beware of Mr. Peepers. And it was a picture, like a portrait of this CO. So we were like, that's creepy. Like, what? We didn't know, you know what I mean? We didn't know but yeah, he started throwing movida with the mental health girls, because he knew that if anything they told or something, they're going to say, they don't believe them. They're always going to mental health. They're making up things or whatever, okay? Well, I had an experience with one of my friends started talking to him, and she started really caring about him, like she really thought that he cared about her. And I lived in the pod with him. I seen him messing around with the mental health girl, but I didn't tell her because she was my friend. And I didn't want to hurt her feelings. You know what I mean? Like, she cared about him, and he used to like bring her pizza and candy. And he used to go into her room in the night and watch her. She told me some things, and I don't think she told anybody else, but it scared me, because I was like, what do you mean? She's all, I woke up and he was standing over me. And I'm all, what? What do you mean? That's weird, you know? But she thought it was just him trying to give her some candy or whatever. And I'm like, nah, man, that's weird. That's weird, you know? And there was like a lawsuit with like 9 cases on him, you know? But I truly believe that he abused the men, because why would they go out of their way to draw a self-portrait of this CEO to warn the women? You know, like, it just didn't make sense to me. But I agree that I feel like it's like a breeding ground because people who are predators, they prey. Do you know what I mean? They're predators for a reason. They know. And if they have bad intentions, of course they're gonna be like, nah, I'm just gonna go work at a prison or whatever, you know? And I feel like a lot of that, they should be like vetted, or like they should have some kind of mental health test, or, you know, because sexual predators like that, they cannot be rehabilitated. It's been proven. Like, I don't know how many times I guess I know a little bit more about that because I'm in a criminal justice. My associates is a criminal justice, right? And I learned a lot about the mind and how it works. And what happens is, like, psychopaths like that, they start having little like traits when they're real younger, you know what I mean? And they just get worse. They don't get any better, and unless they get treatment, you know what I mean? And I feel like the prisons, it becomes a sense of like, we're gonna just protect them. Then you're like them, like, you know what I mean? When I went to the warden, she was a female, and I thought she would help, and instead of helping, she like literally retaliated against me. And it's just really crazy, the things that happen, you know. But I feel your pain because it's still going on, and I wish that there was like changes that we could make. I'm really excited about. I want you to talk a little bit. I'm gonna finish up here, and then I want you to talk about your Unlock the Civics and your new Project Echo upcoming hub, because that is so exciting, and I'm so very proud of you. So during your prison stay, did you ever experience an act of violence, and how did that affect your life? Like, because I know I seen violent things, and it affected me.
Um, Prison is violence. I don't care if you're there for 10 days or 10 years, you're going to experience or witness violence in some kind of way. There is a culture of violence that exists in a lot of the facilities, and it's all the way from the staff down to the prisoners. Some of my first memories in the county jail was um, there would be a sally port between 2 pods, and they would keep these 2 pods separate because of the rival gangs. But sometimes they would throw 2 rival gang members in the sally port to fight each other, and then the correction officers would place bets on them. Like things like that, like inciting violence. I've seen correction officers pop doors so that like in a lockdown pod, they would pop the door so that the prisoners could beat up somebody. If you're in segregation or protective custody or something like that, that doesn't mean that you're safe. A lot of the times, if the guards have something against you, they'll create a situation where the prisoners can get to you. And so, like, I just know that, like, the prisons attract a certain kind of person. I used to see these guards at the jail playing these games of, like, they're literally shooting inmates, and I'm like, these are the people that are supposed to be keeping us safe. And so, like, I didn't have really problems with prisoners. The violence I was subjected to was more from the prison staff. First time I got beat up was at the old Bernalillo County Detention Center. Captain John Thomas and his cronies, or he was a CO at the time, now he's a captain. That just goes to show you that violent culture just gets promoted.
Imagine that he's running that facility now.
Yeah, he's a captain now, and so this guy is like 400 pounds, 6'7", huge. I mean, he would smash me just by himself. But him and his buddies mopped the floor with me. He gave me black eyes. That's why I keep my hair short, because I had long hair at the time, and they used it as a handle to mop the floor with me. Like, and so I don't want anything like. I guess, yeah, it kept me from growing my hair out ever again. Uh, I accepted a lot of the violence as part of my sentence. When I would get beaten up by SEALs or mistreated or whatever, I just thought, well, I put myself here. This is what I get. It wasn't until I got a little bit older and more educated that I realized that's not part of my sentence. You know, I didn't get sentenced to beatings or assaults and all this. And then I will say that there's this one individual at the, his name was Jason Ellis. He was the sergeant of the STIU at
Oh,
MDC.
I'm all. Oh wow.
He
I'm
uh,
all. You
he put
know
all my
those
friends
guys.
he put all my friends on my enemy list so that I would be isolated. He was basically trying to get me to PC, go into protective custody by putting all my friends on my enemy list. And so this individual is no longer working at MDC. Now he's at the juvenile detention center. So this is
Wow.
like, violence. Uh, it can affect you in one of two ways. Either you assimilate to that sort of violence and learn to repay harm with harm, or you start exposing that. You start exposing it. And there's this whole culture of you don't snitch. Well, when they're doing that to you, it's not snitching, it's standing up for your life. Uh, my last incident, prior to getting released from prison, I was indicted on a trafficking charge. I was supposed to get released free from paper, but the state of New Mexico re-indicted me. I got sent back to MDC to be arraigned on this 18-year charge. And during that time, I was on psych medications. I was deprived of those for like a week or 4 days. On the fourth day, I started banging on my cell door. So they sent Sergeant Eric Allen up there to teach me a lesson. He opened up my food port and aimed his taser weapon at my crotch, told me to turn around and face the wall. I complied with everything he did, and he still proceeded to spray me with mace and shock me repeatedly in the back. And this individual has a reputation for doing that. There's a video on YouTube where he's instructing another correction officer to shock Susie Chavez for 45 minutes. He's saying, twist her wrist until she shuts up. And
Oh,
so every time he abused a prisoner, he would get paid leave. That's basically a reward for abusing us. And so this time I wasn't gonna let it go. I found an attorney, filed grievances, hired an attorney, and sued the Metropolitan Detention Center. Um, to this day, um, Sergeant Eric Allen was never held accountable for what he did, but karma got a hold of him. He ended up shooting himself in the head, and his wife took a bottle of Ambien on the side of the road in Colorado a couple of years ago. And so he won't be harming anybody else. But I don't wish that upon anyone. But I see it as poetic justice when somebody finally, um, you know, uh, endures what they've inflicted on other people.
wow. That's. Yeah, I've never like I cry sometimes at my things, but I was literally almost in tears because like nobody should have to endure the things that you have endured, you know, and you're such a strong person because of it, and even like you could just be good at that, but the work that you're doing now. So let's talk about is there anything else that you would wish to share about your experience?
I would just say that the state violence I was subjected to has driven me to this work, to the work that I'm doing today. I would not be doing this work had I not experienced and witnessed some of the things that happen in our corrections department. And so I didn't choose this work; it kind of chose me. I feel like I have a purpose in trying, since I've been out this time, I've been actively standing with prisoners who endure abuse and assaults, and helping them to get support and representation. Um, but yeah, my work today is the result of what I experienced as a prisoner.
That's such a great success story, because you've turned all, like, so many people that would have gone through that would turn, like, they would just maybe be doing bad, or like just be out here trying to make it, you know what I mean? And you're like, I want to help, I'm trying to make changes because of the stuff that you endured, because you don't want that to happen. Can you talk a little bit about your Unlock the Civics project that you're working on? And I want you to tell us about, like, how you've gone other places to see how they're implementing there, and you're trying to bring back new things here. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I want to tell you how it first started. I first got into this work. I had trouble getting a job when I get out because of my record, and so I started volunteering at places. And it was through this volunteer work that I started getting social justice minded and started learning about other advocacy groups in the community. In 2017, I was invited to a Millions for Prisoners rally at Roosevelt Park, and that was the first time I spoke publicly about my experience in prison. That day, I cried, and the people in the crowd were crying, and I got a piece of myself back that day. But I've been an organizer with Millions for Prisoners New Mexico since then. And some of the work we do is we stand with people behind the walls and support people who are going through hard times, especially those who are standing up for themselves and who are being retaliated against. We also work in the state legislature. We stand for any legislation that is an investment in our humanity and our community and our people, but we will be really loud to stop any legislation that expands the prison industrial complex. And so, like, whenever these criminal justice reform bills come up and they're like have a negative impact on our community, we show up and give public testimony against it. But that's kind of how I got into the work I'm doing today. In 2018, there was a national prison strike, and because of a riot that happened in South Carolina that left 7 prisoners dead. Out of that prison riot sparked the 2018 prison strike, where prisoners across the United States were doing work stoppages and hunger strikes to protest the conditions and the violence that was happening. And so out of that strike came the 10 demands. Basically an end to modern day slavery in the United States. The second demand was an end to prison slavery or modern day slavery. And the 10th demand was restoration of voting rights for people behind the walls, people on probation and parole, pretrial detainees, any citizen that is incarcerated. So in an attempt to expose systemic racism and oppression that exists in the state legislature, Millions for Prisoners New Mexico introduced a bill to restore voting rights to people behind the walls, like Maine and Vermont. Maine and Vermont never stripped the right to vote because those states are predominantly white. Felon disenfranchisement is rooted in racism and Jim Crow law. Its only purpose is to create subordination and second-class citizenship. It is a mechanism of slavery. And so that year we got a sponsor, House Representative Gail Chasey. She sponsored the bill. She still supports what's called universal suffrage. Universal suffrage means never stripping the right to vote. But our bill got hijacked and basically redrafted to its current version that we got passed. So this past legislative session, we passed the Voting Rights Act, and what it includes a provision to restore voting rights to people on probation and parole. The problem with that is that a lot of people who have been off paper for 10 or 12 years living in the community aren't even aware of the change in law or that they've been eligible. So my job today is to increase civic engagement among young people, formerly incarcerated people, new citizens, and non-traditional voters. So I currently work as the Inclusive Democracy Organizer with Organizers in the Land of Enchantment, or OLE, and we're working on the implementation of voting rights. I recently went out to Chicago to a conference sponsored by the Sentencing Project, and they're pushing for the Sentencing Project is coordinating a national movement for universal suffrage or never stripping the right to vote. So I attended that conference, and while I was there, I was able to communicate with some of the men in Statesville prison through a telehealth or like a video conferencing. And it was amazing to me because these men are all on death row, but they're teaching civics to the prison population. And I thought that was really cool because people wonder, well, if they're on death row, that why would they even care about voting? And the way they talked about it, they were like, well, we hope to educate our peers, our loved ones and families in hopes that they will vote in ways that will give us a second chance, or because not all of us are here for what we've been charged for, you know? And so, yeah, I just thought that was really powerful, and it's got me to thinking about how we could do that here in New Mexico. So we're partnering with Project Equal UN and Health Sciences to start introducing civics curriculum in New Mexico correction facilities. We want to start educating folks before they, while they have the time to absorb the information and learn and think about it, because trying to engage folks when they get out, it's not realistic. We're trying to get jobs. We're trying to get housing. We're trying to just get our basic needs met. Voting is not at the top of our list. And so we want to be very intentional about educating folks in Department of Corrections. And so I've started going back into the facilities every monthly. This month next month I'll be in Los Lunas prison. But right now I'm only communicating with the folks in reentry who are like six months to the door. And I don't feel that would have the same impact as if we're educating the entire population. And so that's what I want to do. And so I'm really seeking out like system impacted community members to participate in this popular education program, because the messenger matters. Your peers and your loved ones and your family are more likely to listen to you and learn from you than they are about some lawmaker telling them about their rights. And so we were being very intentional about engaging system impacted folks and family members, because we are the people directly impacted by some of these policies that we don't have a say in. The other thing, there's this addiction expert, Gabor Mate. He talks about addiction, and he says the opposite of addiction is not abstinence. The opposite of addiction is human connection. And so we want to increase civic engagement in the community. We don't necessarily civic engagement isn't only voting. Civic engagement is being a part of your community, building a community, and feeling safe in a community of people that share your experience. So through this popular education program, I hope to build a community of system impacted folks where we have a network of people so we can provide resources and information to each other. Because for those of us who have been successful out here, we know what it takes to overcome those barriers. We have the resources, we have the knowledge. We're just not connected to one another to support our brothers and sisters. So if we can establish like a community of folks who have been there and share that experience, we are powerful. We are powerful together. Alone, we're just imagining what our futures would be like. And so, thinking about civic engagement, we're going to be hosting a Unlock Civics event here in Albuquerque on October 28th from 12 to 2. If anybody is interested, contact me or Rhiannon, and we can provide you with the link to sign up for our event. We're keeping it private just to keep dangerous folks out. You know, there was a shooting yesterday, in Espanola, and so those are the type of people we want to prevent from coming to our events, because we keep each other safe. So if I'm signing you up, I know that you're not a threat to my community, and so that's how it works, by word of mouth, just knowing each other. And we're on all the social media platforms. Ole, Organizers in the Land of Enchantment, is on all the social media platforms. Also, Millions for Prisoners New Mexico is on all the social media platforms. Look us up, check out our work. And then our Millions for Prisoners events are pretty fun. I mean, we have like events at Roosevelt Park where we have entertainment, speakers, political education, art, and our community is beautiful. And so we want to expand it and bring uh, other people who are trying to achieve the same goal together. We want to bring our people together.
I'm so excited and so privileged just to be honored to be able to work with you guys and to help with the movement, because I agree that it takes a village, and we need to know our community. This is our community, and we need a network of people. If anyone is interested, I urge you right now to contact one of us, and we will put you in the right contact with information to come down to the event and check it out and see what it's about. If you guys are trying to get involved with what we're working on, if you think this is aligns with your goals, please come out, please contact us. And I think this has been one of my favorite podcasts, just because it touched me personally so much. Your story, everything that you've overcome. You're so I don't know. You're just like you're a bright light person to me. Because when I see people, I'm like one of those empaths people. I see the light around you. I see who you are. You know what I mean? And I'm very excited to be on board with you guys, and I'm excited about everything that you're doing. And like I said, I urge anybody in our community, this is your community too. We are not just here for each other, we're here for everybody, and we would like you to get involved. Would you have a message for anybody that is thinking that maybe they are coming out and they can't make it? What would you give a message to somebody, or maybe like your former self? I always say to my former self, well, because like I've changed so much. I'm such a dramatically different person than when I first got incarcerated, and I imagine yourself as well.
What I would say to anybody coming out is that our relationships are sacred. And so the relationships you hold determine your success in society. When you start connecting with folks who have shared your experience and succeeded, you're more likely to succeed yourself. But going back to the same people and same places that led us to incarceration, it's inevitable that you'll go back or start engaging in negative behavior. I would say that like this opportunity to get involved with the community is where it's at, because we have people with. I mean, I don't think I'd be here today had I not gotten connected with my community the way I have. My community believed in me more than I believed in myself, and like really pushed me to speak on these things and do these things. Even college, I didn't think I could go back and finish at UNM, but it was the community that pushed me, or like, guided me, supported me, and it's all about the networks you create out here. Like you can create a solid network. To get the more solid your network is, the better chance you have to move up in the world and manifest your dreams. I mean, I never thought I would be doing any of this stuff today. 10 years ago, I thought that I would, I imagined that I would still be using or incarcerated. And it's because of the connections I've made with other folks who, didn't judge me and supported me. And yeah, that's what I hope to, I hope we can build that network or support system for folks coming out together. Um, But like you said, it takes a whole village.
It does. It really does. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much, Fred. What time is your yoga at?
At 2:30, I'm gonna head over there right now.
Okay. Hey, send me the address. I might get there. I might not. Well, because I didn't know it was today, and I have another podcast.
Well,
but
it'll be next week too.
Okay, every Friday.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. So today I scheduled it for 2:30 just because of this podcast.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I wanna check with other members to see what works for everyone.
Right.
And then get a established date, and then I'll start advertising it on social media or publicly.
That's so cool. I'm so excited. It's going to be very neat because it's a community for us to be able to plug into. I'm excited for that. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for every time I have a question or whatever, you always answer me. And I'm excited to be able to work with you and to help grow and hopefully possibly be one of the first females to go in with the Echo Hub at the female prisons. No, well,
Let's do this.
because they know, a lot of people know me, you know what I mean? And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, Shannon. And I think that's it. To me, 100% that's important because I want them to see if I could make it, they could make it. When I was in there and I used to see girls just coming in back, like the girls would get out and in 3 days they'd be back. And I'm like, what happened? Like, I was so scared to get out because I was like, I'm going to fail. These girls can't even make it. They have families. I didn't even have family support. I've made it with people like you in my community who believed in me, who people in our community who had faith in us when we didn't even have faith in ourselves. So I resonate so much with your story. Everything that you talked about touched me right in my heart. I was practically in tears a lot of times. I was like trying to keep it together, but I'm so grateful to you. I know that this podcast is going to impact and touch a lot of people because I've only had one male on here before, and his name is O.C. Farrell. You might have done time.
I know him.
He did 32
So,
years, and he's good people.
Yeah, so he's one of the lifers that finally got paroled. What's happening in the Department of Corrections now is lifers who are eligible for parole are getting arbitrarily denied. And so O.C. Farrell, how he got released was public pressure. The In-Depth New Mexico wrote an article about him, and after that he was freed. But that's what we need to, how we empower our folks from out here. I mean, we connect them with the right resources and give them a voice so that all that stuff that's happening to them gets exposed.
That's
and so
right.
Yeah, I know O.C. Farrell.
I'm real good with him. He's here in Los Lunas. If you ever want to, well, because he's like my good buddy and he does a lot of work in the community too. He's actually one of the people that hands out food at the pantry here. And he was talking about the severe homeless situation. There's a lot of homeless people here, and the city don't even want to address it. They were trying to build a homeless center here, like some private people. And the city was like, no, get out of our office. We don't want to talk to you. And I was like, what? Well, because I know these people and they talk to me like, I would never hear these kinds of things, you know what I mean, on my own. But because they trust me and I'm part of the community that they serve, they tell me a lot of things, and I'm like, wow, we'll see. I give food. I send a lot of people to them for food because it's hard out here. Families can't make it. I'm like, go over there to the church. They help you pay a bill. There's just lots of resources over there, and I'm glad to be connected in my community, and I'm glad that I have you also. Thank you so much for being on Behind Bars in the 505. You're a new member. You've been inducted. So I'm so grateful to you. Thank you so much. This was excellent, and it was all fire. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to get you dancing soon. No, just kidding. Well, because I'm a dance instructor, and I'm like, we're gonna go boogie somewhere. No.
All right.
Thank you. Have
All
a
right,
good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.
Signing
Bye.
off, guys. We had somebody watching, but I don't know. They didn't comment. So I was waiting to see if anybody commented, but they didn't. Thank you for anybody that was watching. We had a couple of viewers coming in and out. We appreciate you. We always do. I'm going to post the video once I finish this hit end so that it'll be on our Behind Bars page and on my YouTube page. Thank you, everybody. Oh, and on the YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.